On a rainy October night, the kind where the cold seeps into your bones and every sound echoes louder, the police received a call that would haunt them for years to come. A lifeless body found inside a quiet suburban home. The victim, Catherine Fuller, 32, stabbed multiple times. But this wasn't just any murder, it was a love story gone violently wrong. The camera moves slowly through the dark streets of Maplewood, a small town where the houses sit neatly in rows, porches bathed in the soft glow of street lamps. Tonight, the rain falls hard, drumming rhythmically against the pavement, and the leaves piled in gutters. It blurs the world, like a scene smeared in sorrow. Neighbors peek from behind curtains, their eyes wide with fear and disbelief. Whispers ripple through the chilled air. Who could have done this? Doors close quietly, locks clicking shut, as if to keep the horror out. The familiar turns sinister. Inside the modest but tasteful home at 47 Maple Drive, the silence is broken only by the steady drip of rainwater from the eaves. Inside, the scene is one of chaos frozen in time. Catherine Fuller was known to everyone in town, vibrant, ambitious, fiercely determined, a rising star in the local real estate scene. Her laugh was infectious, and her smile could light up even the darkest rooms. To strangers, she was perfect. To those who knew her, she was more. She had plans, big ones, a dream to build a business, a life filled with adventure and love. Yet beneath the polished surface lay a secret no one saw coming. A private world where love and danger tangled, hidden behind her bright eyes. Tonight, those dreams ended violently. The rain washes over the house as police tape flutters in the wind. A red glow of taillights flickers in the distance. The hunt for truth begins. But the answers are tangled deep in love, betrayal, and heartbreak. Catherine Fuller wasn't just a name in the news. She was a woman with a story, a life full of contradictions and complexities that made her both beloved and vulnerable. Maplewood was a town that thrived on familiarity. Everyone knew Catherine's face. She was the energetic real estate agent who could sell a house faster than anyone else, known for her sharp wit and genuine warmth. She had a close circle of friends who admired her resilience, especially after the heartbreak she'd endured a few years back. She'd married Daniel Fuller, a businessman 10 years her senior, whose polished charm and financial success made him a respected figure in town. To outsiders, their marriage looked like a match made in heaven. But behind closed doors, things were different. Daniel was distant, often preoccupied with work, leaving Catherine feeling isolated despite the comfort their lifestyle provided. The emotional gap between them grew wider with every passing month. It was during this loneliness that Eric entered her life. Eric was the kind of man who didn't stand out in a crowd. A quiet artist, reserved and enigmatic, living on the fringes of Maplewood's social scene. He sketched the city's skyline, capturing its moods on canvas, sometimes vibrant, sometimes haunting. There was something about him that drew Catherine in, something raw and real. Their affair was intense but secretive. Stolen moments in dimly lit cafes, hurried phone calls, and whispered promises. For Catherine, Eric represented freedom from a life that felt like a gilded cage. No one in Maplewood knew about Eric, not her friends, not Daniel, not even her own family. She guarded that secret fiercely, terrified of the consequences if it came to light. Why risk everything for a man who seemed so out of place in her polished world? Maybe it was the craving for connection, or the hope that love could heal what was broken. But love, as it turns out, can be the most dangerous game of all. The night of the murder, Catherine's home was a picture of shattered normalcy. Police arrived to a scene that felt more like a frozen moment from a nightmare than a crime scene. Inside the living room, the faint smell of rain mixed with something metallic, the sharp scent of blood that hung thick in the air. Flickering overhead lights cast eerie shadows on the walls, where crimson spatters told a story too brutal to ignore. Blood, pooled beneath the heavy oak coffee table, seeping into the plush carpet. Broken glass from a shattered vase lay scattered across the floor like cruel confetti. The sound of dripping blood echoed quietly, a haunting metronome marking the tragedy. In the bedroom, the scene grew even more chilling. On the bedside table rested a single red rose, untouched and immaculate amid the chaos, a deliberate message from the killer, or a twisted symbol of love turned deadly. The clock on the wall stopped at exactly 9:15 p.m., perhaps the time of the attack. Detectives noticed something unsettling. No sign of forced entry. The front door was locked from the inside, the back door latched tight. Whoever committed this horrific act had either been invited in or was someone Catherine knew well enough to trust. Daniel Fuller's fingerprints were everywhere, as expected, but so was an unknown set of prints, smaller and more delicate, found smudged on the windowsill. Eric was nowhere to be found. His phone was turned off, and his car was missing from his usual parking spot. Every piece of evidence seemed to pull in a different direction. Was this a crime of passion, revenge, or something far more sinister? The quiet house, once a place of warmth and laughter, was now a crypt of secrets. Detective Sarah Miles stood silently in the middle of the chaos, knowing this scene was only the first page of a dark story that would unravel far beyond these walls. Detective Sarah Miles had seen her share of heartbreak, but the case of Catherine Fuller quickly became one of the most perplexing and emotionally charged she'd ever faced. From the moment she stepped into Catherine's home, she sensed the layers of secrets waiting to be peeled back, each one more tangled than the last. Her first lead was the missing man, Eric, Catherine's secret lover. A quiet artist with an air of mystery, Eric had vanished the night of the murder, leaving behind an eerie silence. Witnesses told of seeing him near Catherine's house just hours before the crime, his expression tense, his footsteps hurried. Detectives tracked his last known movements, small cafes, late-night art shows, whispered conversations with friends who claimed Eric had seemed distracted, even afraid. But when officers found Eric's apartment, it was empty, eerily stripped of personal effects, as if he'd planned to disappear. Meanwhile, Daniel Fuller's alibi began to crumble under scrutiny. Initially, Daniel claimed to have been at a business conference in another city, but phone records told a different story. Late-night calls to an unknown number, vague explanations about meetings that never happened. When confronted, Daniel grew defensive, his polished veneer cracking. His refusal to disclose the details only deepened suspicion. Text messages recovered from Catherine's phone revealed a web of tension. Heated exchanges with Eric, accusations of betrayal, jealousy, desperation, but also cryptic threats from someone unidentified, signed only as L. Detective Miles knew these digital breadcrumbs were key but frustratingly incomplete. Interviews with friends and family painted a complex picture. Catherine was happy at times, yet fearful at others. A woman caught between love and obligation, longing for freedom but trapped by loyalty and fear. Red herrings began to surface. A jealous ex-boyfriend resurfaced, his resentment simmering beneath a polite facade. A disgruntled business rival lurked in the background, with motives tied not to love, but to money and power. For every clue uncovered, new questions emerged. Who wanted Catherine dead? And why? And the case wasn't just about a murder anymore. It was about betrayal, obsession, and the dangerous lines people cross when emotions spiral out of control. As Detective Miles sifted through the lies and half-truths, she realized that in Maplewood, love could be deadly, and the truth was far from simple. Detective Sarah Miles knew that understanding the why behind a murder was often more complex than uncovering the who. And in Catherine Fuller's case, the motives twisted through layers of love, jealousy, and despair, dark emotions simmering beneath polite facades. Daniel Fuller, the successful businessman whose public image was flawless, calm, collected, a man in control. But beneath that polished surface lurked frustration and resentment. Friends whispered of his growing impatience with Catherine's increasing independence, her secretive behavior, and the fading warmth in their marriage. He felt betrayed, not just by infidelity, but by a loss of control. Was it jealousy that drove him, or something darker? Rage that had been building silently until it exploded in violence? Eric's world was a stark contrast, an artist who lived in emotion, not logic. His paintings told a story of obsession, haunting portraits of a woman with wide, fearful eyes and twisted expressions. He'd confessed to friends his deep, overwhelming love for Catherine, love that bordered on obsession. The blurred lines between affection and fixation can become dangerous, and Eric's fragile psyche was under pressure. Was his passion a weapon, or was he a pawn in a game he never fully understood? Then there was Catherine herself. In her private journals, she wrote of feeling trapped, caught in a web of expectations, lies and fear. The vibrant woman the world knew masked a vulnerability few saw. She feared for her safety, hinted at threats from someone close. Her last entries were desperate pleas for freedom and peace. The investigators also considered the shadowy figure L from the threatening messages, someone who seemed consumed by jealousy or rage, someone who watched from the edges, waiting to strike. In Maplewood, love was rarely simple. It was a battlefield where emotions could warp and twist motivations until reason was lost. Detective Miles felt the weight of these mind games keenly. Every suspect carried their own story, their own pain, and sometimes pain can turn lethal. Could Daniel's anger have crossed the line? Was Eric's obsession the final trigger, or was someone else, hidden in plain sight, pulling the strings? The detective knew that unraveling these tangled emotions was the key to unlocking the truth. But in a world ruled by passion and betrayal, the answers would not come easy. Just when Detective Sarah Miles thought she was closing in, the case took a sharp, unexpected turn. A twist so profound it threatened to upend everything she believed. The DNA evidence under Catherine's fingernails was the first bombshell. Forensic experts were clear it didn't match Daniel or Eric. Whoever had been in that room with Catherine fought back fiercely, but this stranger wasn't a T on the police radar. Then came the witness, an elderly neighbor named Mrs. Thompson, who claimed she saw a suspicious car speeding away from Maple Drive around the time of the murder. The license plate traced back to a man named Victor Graves, a known criminal with a shady past tied to Daniel Fuller's business rivalries. Suddenly, the murder wasn't just about love and jealousy. It had dark undercurrents of money, power, and revenge. Detective Miles dug into Victor's background. A former enforcer turned petty criminal, Victor had reasons to target Daniel, but was Catherine just collateral damage, or was she part of a bigger scheme? Meanwhile, Daniel S.'s shaky alibi grew even shakier when surveillance footage surfaced, showing him near Maplewood the night of the murder, despite his claims of being out of town. But then, the investigation hit a wall. Eric reappeared unexpectedly, turning himself in at the police station. Pale, disheveled and shaken, he insisted he was innocent and begged for a chance to explain. His confession complicated everything. He claimed to have seen someone else leaving Catherine S. house that night, someone he recognized but terrified to name. As the web tightened, Detective Miles found herself navigating a labyrinth of lies, betrayals, and hidden motives. Every lead seemed to twist back on itself, every suspect's story riddled with contradictions. Was Victor Graves the hired hand behind the murder, or just a convenient scapegoat? Was Daniel protecting a secret darker than infidelity? And who was the mysterious figure Eric feared to expose? The deeper the detective delved, the clearer it became. This was no straightforward crime of passion. This was a tangled mess, a puzzle with pieces that refused to fit. Maplewood's quiet streets hid secrets darker than anyone imagined, and with every step forward, Detective Miles realized the truth might be more dangerous than the lies. Just when the case seemed to spiral into endless suspicion and dead ends, Detective Sarah Miles uncovered the truth nobody saw coming. The killer wasn't Daniel, not Eric, not some shadowy criminal hired from outside. It was Lisa, Catherine's closest friend. The revelation hit the town of Maplewood like a thunderclap. Lisa, who had always been the quiet, supportive presence in Catherine's life, the one everyone trusted, had orchestrated the entire murder. Detectives found subtle but damning evidence. Security footage from a nearby gas station showed Lisa's car near Maple Drive on the night of the murder. Despite her insisting she was at home, her fingerprints were on the red rose left at the scene, a twisted calling card. But the motive was even darker: jealousy. Lisa had long harbored resentment toward Catherine's success and happiness. She envied the life Catherine had, her charm, her career, her relationships. Behind that friendly smile lay bitterness that festered like poison. Lisa had tried to sabotage Catherine's deals, spread rumors, and even threatened her in whispered confrontations. When those tactics failed, her envy turned violent. During interrogation, Lisa's facade crumbled. Her voice trembling, she confessed to the murder, a crime of passion fueled by years of suppressed rage. "I wanted her to feel what I felt. The emptiness, the betrayal," she whispered. She had staged the scene to implicate Daniel and Eric, manipulating their secrets to cover her tracks. The red rose, the messages, the misleading alibis, all carefully planned to misdirect. As Lisa was led away in handcuffs, Maplewood struggled to reconcile the friend they thought they knew with the woman who shattered their peace. Detective Miles reflected on the cruel irony. Sometimes the deadliest weapon isn't a stranger's knife, but the hidden venom of betrayal from someone trusted most. Maplewood had always been a town where neighbors waved hello and doors stayed unlocked. But Catherine Fuller's murder ripped through that sense of safety like a jagged knife. The news of Lisa's arrest stunned the community. Shock turned quickly into a complicated mix of grief, disbelief, and betrayal. How could someone so close, someone they laughed with at backyard barbecues and confided in during late-night talks, hide such darkness? Catherine's funeral was attended by hundreds. Friends, family, and even strangers mourned the loss of a woman who had once seemed unstoppable, vibrant, and full of hope. Tears flowed freely, but beneath the sorrow was a question that haunted everyone. Could this tragedy have been prevented? Daniel Fuller, once a suspect, now a broken man, faced the crushing weight of grief and public scrutiny. His silence was a painful reminder of love lost and innocence tarnished. Eric, too, was left to pick up the pieces of his shattered heart. His return to Maplewood was quiet, marked by whispered apologies and the heavy burden of secrets he never dared reveal. Detective Sarah Miles, exhausted but resolute, reflected on the tangled web of human emotions that had led to this moment. The investigation was over, but the scars remained on the victims, the accused, and the town itself. Maplewood streets carried a new kind of silence now, a silence filled with the echoes of betrayal, lost trust, and the fragile hope for healing. In the end, Catherine Fuller's story was a chilling reminder. Even in the quietest places, darkness can lurk beneath the surface. And sometimes, the greatest tragedy isn't just the loss of a life. It is the loss of innocence and the shattering of a community's soul. If this story gave you chills, make sure to subscribe for more gripping true crime tales. Hit that like button if you want to see justice served, and drop your theories or thoughts in the comments. We want to hear what you think happened. Stay curious, stay safe, and remember, sometimes the truth is stranger than fiction.